Hello, good evening, everyone. On behalf of Tango Monastery, Canada, I would like to welcome very venerable Lode Sangpo, and we are really grateful for accepting our invitation and coming all the way from Halifax to give us a teaching here. So today's teaching topic will be the 4 ways of working with the kleshas and the path of the 5 wisdom. So today, when Lode Sangpo will be teaching us about the nature of the kleshas and how can we deal with the kleshas and the antidote of the kleshas and how it works and how we have to deal with that. So when Lode Sangpo is a student of the late Wen Trungpa Rinpoche, so when you talk about the Trungpa Rinpoche, he is one of the foremost the Tibetan master who came all the way from Tibet to the West Country, and he learned English. But I was lucky enough to listen to some of his teaching, but I have heard like his English is so good that even I think the native English speaker is amazed how he speaks the English. And he has translated many teachings and the ritual practice sadhanas into English, which is very precise. So when Lode Sangpo is student of the late Wen Trungpa Rinpoche and Khenchen Trungpa Rinpoche, and Trungpa Rinpoche we all know, and Dzogchen Ponlop Rinpoche. When Lode Sangpo was born in 1952 in Germany, he took refuge with Trungpa Rinpoche in 1980 and moved to Gambo Abbey, Canada in 1985. Where he received the Gesul ordination from Trungpa Rinpoche, who had become its abbot upon Trungpa Rinpoche's request. And again, Trungpa Rinpoche and Trungpa Rinpoche were very close friends, and they were also taking the ordination at the same time. He completed the traditional 3 years retreat in 1996 and a 4-year study routine in 2003. He served for a few years as acting director of Gambo Abbey, was one of the co-founders of Nithada Institute, and served as the chair of the Vajra Dara Institute, the monastic college of Gambo Abbey. Since its inception, his focus of study is in systematic traditions of Buddhist Abhidharma. In context, he has translated few books from the English to German and French. Now he is also the president of the Karma Changchuli KKCL in Halifax. So until now, I think most of you have experience about listening and receiving teaching from the Tibetan master, Tibetan Rinpoches. And as we know that because of the culture differences and because of our understanding, the way of understanding is different. So today we are very fortunate to have the Western teacher who is going to share his experience and the teaching about the Buddha Dharma. So I think it's a very good chance that his the way of understanding, the way of the presenting will be much different than the Tibetan master. So I would like to request you all pay attention and hope you enjoy the teaching. And if you have any questions, they have a question and answer section, so we can do after the teaching. So before we have the teaching, we will go with the, okay, since we have a Western teacher and the Tibetan traditional the monastery, so we will go 50 and 50, half and half. So before we receive teaching, we will go through the Vajra lineage prayer, and then we will do the mandala offering, and then he will preside the teaching, and after the teaching we will do the dedications. So the aspiration book, page number 6, lineage prayer. Page number 25. So this is the traditional way of requesting a teacher to give us a teaching.
Sado Mojra Bhumi Moishi Namara Namo Mojen Sirya Soin Mojra Riji Moichi Achari Horiyanji Ravi Yonsu Horvi Vizuri Yanjamo Revo Chorai Sharai Lumo Moi Loi Zambo Lian Noi Molai Jai Chai Ramin Le la le boy aya long aya se yu de na lam jo lo la me nye do la me nye je re mo mo so je se an de je mo 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 ye lo lo hu lo le mo je lo mo le mo so mo le mo je lo mo le mo je la mo le mo je do jo le mo je mo le mo Dere jembe bombo enje mo je mo lo mo ngora mo medo mo endo be nozo mo de ja mo ni mo do mo rembora je ando sole no bora enjel be enjo Wezo lo do mi mo jo mo zo so me mo ra jo enjo zo du je na le de bora mo bora ngwen Lama yi doi san ji chen chab san bo nga doi shi kya so me so doi che pa nam. Mo re ji mo en do che do be du doi she so shi ne chen ji la so she pe che chu she me doi da de da le she nye de. San ji shin do me de mo ba yin chung we nam doi she la che mo ro yu.
Do I have this? Okay, good. Good evening. Can everyone hear me? Okay, good. I'm not used to this, so let me know if the sound gets distorted. What was the topic? No one remembers? Okay. Okay. So I'm told the topic is the 4 ways of working with kleshas in the path of the 5 wisdoms. First of all, this is a little bit embarrassing for me to be here. It's very simple. I think I have always been here only when great teachers were there, the Karmapa. And at one point, I came late and I didn't have a ticket. And I thought I could sneak in as a monk. But I was asked for my ticket, and it was when the Karmapa was here. I thought that nevertheless, at that point, I was not even aware that the Karmapa was teaching. I just accidentally actually came at that time. And so then I thought, this is too good. I just have to find a way to get in there, right? And but I did not manage. So then I went outside and said, at least I'm going to wait till he comes. rooms. And I once went to Tibet when he was 14. I went to Tsurpo, and this was all very memorable. So it was for me seeing him again. And then a man came up to me who looked like an outsider, and I thought I should introduce him to what's happening, and he listened nicely. And at some point he was saying, look, I have 2 tickets for this event, and I only need one, so you want to have the other one? So then I managed to get in here, and because I was late, I did not know where to sit. And then they put me just there, just behind Trungpa Rinpoche. And I thought this was a nice coincidence. So basically, this is what I associate with being here. And of course, Trungpa Rinpoche was the one with whom I took refuge. And maybe I tell a few stories here and there about this. And he basically was everything. He was like my father, or the father of Gambo Abbey. And we literally own everything to him. And he always said it's not his doing, it's Trungpa Rinpoche's wish, whatever he was doing. But I'm fairly certain that he only talked about 20 minutes in the whole life about Gampo Abbey, and where he was requested to be our abbot. And it was always Trungpa Rinpoche, who of course knew our Sangha. And so now I'm here, and I have to get used to that, sitting in this beautiful shrine room. So let's look at what I want to do tonight is sort of an introduction. I want to give you a feeling what we are going to do in the next 5 days. And this is always the most complicated part. I always want people to know where we are moving to. And then in a little while, I might be asking you, what do you want to get out of these teachings? Assuming that each one of you knows what kleshas are, and you heard very likely about what wisdoms are. That's the good stuff. Kleshas is the bad stuff, maybe. And so I would want to ask you a little bit, because your Sangha, who I do not know too well, besides from a few visits, and I always was very impressed about being with you in the dining room and so on. So, but maybe let me start out a little bit what I want to do. So I will give you a brief summary of each of the talks. So, because what I present in general is what I call a bird's eye view, or I call it meditation backwards. You know, like I want to give you first a rundown of the whole picture so that you're not saying, oh, what is he saying next? What is he saying next? So that you basically can anticipate a little bit what will happen, and then can think about what questions or issues do you have with it. So I want to give you some time. And, but today we only have 1.5 hours, right? So can everyone hear me clearly? I think my voice is a little funny, but it's my own voice. It has nothing to do with the sound system. But you hear me clearly. If I speak too quickly, particularly because many of you are Chinese, and I know what it feels like not to know English. I was working in the kitchen in Karmatraling in 1980, and at some point, I was cooking there, helping to cook, and someone said, "Bring me a ladle," and I said, "What?" Then she took me by the hand and walked over to the ladles and said, "Ladle, ladle." So I know a little bit. One is not so easy to say, oh, I do not understand you, because it comes up too often. But I want to encourage you, it's not, this is not a teaching for me. This should be, it's also not only for you, because in general, all my teachings, I only pick topics I'm interested in, and I haven't really worked out yet. Is that? So I'm different from Western students or whatever. I have a friend, Karl Brunholzer. He's one of the best and smartest people I know, a great teacher, wrote many, many great books. But each time you go to him, and he is a doctor, a medical doctor. So basically, whenever you go to him, he basically takes his prescription pad out, writes it down. Here, you have the solution to your problem. I'm different. I like not to know everything, right? So I only choose topics where I can get something out. It's very selfish, right? But that's me. I'm not perfect. So, so let's see. The topic is, so let me share you why I chose this topic, okay? In general, the topic could be kleshas and the wisdoms, right? And suddenly it's specified. And my reason was, whenever you ask Buddhists, what is one of the main points, they say, oh, it's the kleshas. I have these kleshas. And at some point, I was teaching at our Gemba Abbey Kshetra for many years. And you cannot just say there are kleshas, you need to always come up with a definition at that point. And so I spent, I think, a whole year to try to find a definition of the klesha, which works for all of them. And I could not find it for a long time, which is odd. So we are used to talk about kleshas, but if we would want to really say, what do you mean by a klesha? Is it, how would you answer that? Actually, maybe let me ask you, can we use a microphone? I want to see what you come up with if I ask, what are kleshas? And only if you feel comfortable. Anyone? Yes.
Please.
And whenever someone
raise your hand.
asks a question right now, it doesn't really matter who asks the question. It's just the way that we open up the topic, right? And then we talk more about it, of course. Yeah.
My understanding of klesha means it's suffering, affliction.
Suffering?
Yeah.
Oh.
Or all kinds of unpleasant experience or unpleasant feelings.
Okay.
I don't know.
So I'm going to ask you back. I have to get used to that. Kleshas are a feeling?
I think so.
Okay, good. There's no right or wrong, okay?
Because klesha is not an English word. It's translated into Chinese 烦恼.
Okay.
烦恼
Means?
means we feel bad, something that
You feel bad.
it's bad feeling,
Okay.
negative emotion.
Okay, good. Someone else? Yes. Just hold on to the microphone.
I would like to request everyone, please raise your hand and use the microphone,
Yeah.
because we have people on live, so they will also listen and they will understand too. Thank you.
Are the kleshas like just the noisy thoughts that just run around your mind all the time and sort of block you from finding your deep consciousness? Is it just everything that's sort of generated in your brain almost, more so than your your consciousness.
Okay, you have a question. Just take that question in.
My understanding, the kleshas is they have 4 different kind of kleshas.
Okay.
You have the kleshas from
4?
4.
Okay, not 3, not
4.
Okay, 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
One is the kleshas of your the 5 aggregate give your body the 5 aggregate
Okay.
that your aggregate sometimes give you trouble, right? Limit your understanding or your ability.
Okay.
Yeah, and also klesha of klesha. Klesha of klesha.
Klesha.
Klesha of klesha.
Klesha of klesha. Okay.
Also the demon of death, klesha. And what is the fourth? That's my understanding.
Okay,
There's
good.
4 kinds.
Good. So we're going to leave this with the kleshas, and we will try clearing them up, but not today, by the way. We will do that tomorrow. And my reason is we need first a context of the klesha. What's the environment of the klesha, right? And so today will mainly be about the mind. A klesha is one form of mind, right? And if we want to work with a klesha or a problem in general, you either work with the klesha itself, right? Or you work with the object of the klesha or the support system. And so basically, this is what we're gonna work out, right? Let's quickly move to wisdom. And anyone? And then I'm gonna go quickly through the topics, and I just want to make you a little bit insecure and okay. Oh. Anyone? Yes, wisdom should be very easy, right?
My understanding is that the wisdoms are the kleshas transformed. That's one thing I've learned.
Okay. How come you have that thought?
Pardon?
How come?
How come?
Yeah. Is this something you studied or you?
Yeah,
Okay.
just reading, you know.
The 4 dharmas of Kampopa, grant your blessing that my mind may be one with the dharma. Grant your blessing that dharma may progress along the path. Grant your blessing that the path may clarify confusion. Grant your blessing that confusion may dawn as wisdom. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Thank you for answering your
Good backup. One other? What do we mean by wisdom in the English language? In general, wisdom is really a wrong word for Yeshe, right? It has certain connotations in the English language, like it's wise and always peaceful, right? And but wisdom in general will work, right? The Sanskrit is jnana, and then we have prajna, superior jnana. And that actually just means cognition, right? It's more earthy. So when we, for example, talk about wisdom, in general, people feel it's sort of like Mahamudra. It's so far away. It's so profound. It is maybe something in 10 years I can be ready for it, right? And so wisdom has these connotations. It's something we would not, maybe when we are old, we would say, now he has lots of wisdom, right? But it's actually much more straightforward. In the Vaibhashika system, a jnana can occur before the first bhumi, before the path of seeing. It's a certain knowledge, and it even can be wrong, right? Prajna can also be wrong, but that's just the Vaibhashikas, and we can brush them aside. No, you don't know enough about it, or whatever, right? But we will look into what do we mean by jnana or wisdom in general. So we talk about wisdom is one thing. I'm wise, right? But here the problem is we have 5 wisdoms. And so whenever I heard 5, I'm thinking about they couldn't make up their mind. Which one is the right one? Shouldn't there be one wisdom? Why 5? And if there are 5, why 5? Why not 6? Is there a logic to it, right? Now I want to share with you my main interest. The terms kleshas, the terms wisdom, come up pretty much on every page in your sadhana. I'm not sure which practice you do, but in general, the whole Vajrayana sadhanas are full of those terms. And because they come up so often, and when we practice them, right? If we do not really have a certainty or some clarity or an own understanding of them, how can you practice them fully? You will have help through the lineage holders, because the sadhanas, they are written by teachers who like their students. They have interest to develop their students, not only in a loose way, they want to develop them as quickly as possible. And they also want to develop them in a way that their whole reality is transformed, not just a part of it. Enlightenment covers the whole experience of your world. So when we, for example, doing the sadhana, some people say, oh, let me just practice it. I don't need to study or whatever. And that's in some sense correct. But why? Because we know maybe if you have a sadhana written by Mikyu Dorje, the 4 sessions, for example, you do not need to question whether it's correct or whatever. So you can have faith in them, right? Particularly if your own personal teacher gives you these sadhanas in order to practice them. Okay, so maybe let me just do a quick run through. We will not do everything linear. I think by now but this is just me. Western teachers often just linear. But I was a school teacher, studied education for 5 years. And there are certain pedagogical, educational teachers, they were just marvelous. And they drop all the linear. They include the linear, but then they shift suddenly. There was a young education didactic in Germany. He died when he was 35. But he wrote a book where the main education happens when you take a walk or when you go to the bathroom and take a bath. He looked for these moments where, or when you sit down in a chair, or another teacher when they studied cosmology, right, where you know how far the stars are away, that when you see them, they're already dead, and all those things. And then you had another scientist walking out and just saw a blue sky with beautiful lamps up there, right? Which one is the right one, a more meaningful one? So we're going to have a mix of things, but I'm very traditional, actually, horribly traditional. If you ask my people at home, there's nothing but tradition for me. But within the tradition, I was always introduced like it being a creative process. Right? Okay. So let me quickly go through the topics. And I need to check. Okay. Okay. So what we will doing in this weekend, we will clarify certain fundamental terms which come up again and again in your sadhana. Whether it's a Mahamudra investigation or you do a visualization practice, it doesn't really matter, it comes up again and again. So we want to develop some kind of personal take. I'll give you a little example. I'm really good with giving examples. We did the pointing out of the Dharmakaya in my 3-year retreat. It's Chiku Tsum. Thank you. Pointing out with a finger towards the Dharmakaya. I was part of the first group of the 3-year retreat. And we were busy, and there were not much Mahamudra books available at that time, thanks God. And so we were just busy getting the retreat started, and we're pushed over the line, so to speak, and then we started out with the Mahamudra investigations. And so, which is the most special text from my point of view, it's written in a way that through certain, who knows this text, pointing out the Dharmakaya? Okay, because Trungpa Rinpoche was a master in this text. And so we received his teachings, but then there were certain questions. There were, the reality was divided up into stillness. You need to know what is a still mind. You need to know what is a moving mind. Let me just fill you in, and you will see later on I will return to this theme. So if you meditate on the nature of your mind, right? And so there the mind has two modes. One is if the mind is still, like for example, or you could do it like you breathe in and you hold your breath just for a little while, and then you just watch what happens. So maybe you all breathe in. So this is stillness, not complicated. It happens all the time. Whenever you have lots of movement, at some point you stop and then it goes on. Most of our minds is not in stillness, but stillness is the easiest to look at the nature of the mind, right? And you are guided with certain questions. What are its characteristics? It's nearly like elementary school, this text. And the questions are clearly structured, helping you from one possible experience to the others. And occasionally you have suggestions meant to mislead you, just to test you whether you think the answer or whether you really have it. So then the next item is movement. You have active mind and up until then in general, most meditation moves towards stillness or shamatha. You want to calm the mind. But in Mahamudra, everything is turned around. Stillness is the first meditation because it's so easy to see the nature of the mind if it's still. Why? Because if the mind is still means it repeats itself. It's the same in the next moment, the next moment, the next moment. In other words, you have several moments of the same mind to look at. When you meditate on movement, it's more tricky because you look maybe at one part and then it moves in another mind, moves another mind. There's too much. It's not so easy. It's a little bit like when you look into a lake which has no wind, and then wind comes in, moves it, and you cannot really see it so quickly. But so basically, in general, most people think nowadays that meditation is about developing peace. And I don't want to take that away from anyone, right? But that's just a didactical step, because once you've seen the nature of the mind, where it's very easy to look at, right? Then you can move on into movement meditation, and actually after the Mahamudra investigation, movement becomes your main meditation. It's no longer stillness. And it's also a good reason, because most of the time our mind are active, right? So next one is, and this all links up with our topic. Don't worry, I do not get lost just by chance. The next point is appearance. So we study the nature. In other words, we ask, is the object separate from the mind or the same as the mind? I assume you already have heard there's something like a mind-only school and so on. And we will cover that a little bit today, because kleshas are about that. For example, if the mind is non-dual by nature, what makes us think that it's actually dual? Answer, the kleshas. Right? There has to be a klesha which creates this duality. Fourth, that was one. Number three. Number fourth is the body and the mind the same or different? And the fifth is stillness and movement, are those different minds? Okay. So, but now to my story. First week of retreat, you look at the wall all day long. 4 sessions, about 10 hours a day. You just look at the wall and ask these questions. Does the mind have a color? Does it have a shape? And all those kind of things. Is it just nothing? Is it whatever, right? I looked at this wall, and I was a Buddhist monk, and I knew the 4 main Buddhist schools. And after a week, I said, my mind doesn't fit into any of the Buddhist schools. How can I still walk around like a monk, right? So then I needed to make a decision. Do I fake it, just keep on giving the right answers, or not? And being German, sorry, I had to say no, I have to work this out. And I said, like, if it really means that I'm no longer a Buddhist, then so be it. It was a risky business, right? But then, of course, what happens when you let go, and at some point you open it up, and then you could easily see, like, there was a Buddhist or something. Not that this, I'm just joking here. Okay. So we got into this topic. When I asked the questions, they were just very simple terms like rupa in Sanskrit, which means form. And I did not know which meaning the term has because I didn't study it, right? So then my only choice was to make up meanings for it, what it could mean. And then later on I said, well, it's either this or it's that, but it's one of them, right? So, and then later on, I read the same questions. I went through the Tibetan text word by word because I wanted to know what do the technical terms actually mean, right? And so basically then the answer was, with Abhidharma, the answer was, what's the problem? It's all easy to answer. So basically that's what my point of this story is. You can practice, and there's benefit in it. But Trungpa Rinpoche told us, we were asking him, why do we have to go step by step through the Mahamudra investigation? Why can we just not flesh on the nature of our mind and so on? We received transmission for that. Why go back to the kindergarten? And that at some point, someone stood up and actually asked that question. He said, look, we received the pointing out instructions from Trungpa Rinpoche, who was a master in it. And do we really have to do that, right? And we all had the same question, but no one would have dared to ask the question. And then Trungpa Rinpoche, in his way, he sings a little, da, 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 da. And then he was saying, look, yes, you are the cream of Trungpa Rinpoche's students. You are the best. And yes, Trungpa Rinpoche, there's no one in the world who can give this transmission better than Trungpa. He's known for it. But how many of you did really get it? How many of you are really stable? And he's given a figure roughly like, usually only 10% maybe get it clearly, right? And the other, they get something, but not so certain, right? And then he said, and usually people do not make much promise, but they say, if you go through this text and go step by step, at the end, you will have certainty and clarity. And ngeluk, that's the term he often used, abiding nature. And all his instructions were about certainty. And certainty is a little bit what this gathering tries to move towards. That we are sort of confident in what we are doing. And that confidence never really stops. It's a continuous process, of course, right? Okay. How late is it? Let me quickly cover the 5 topics. Kleshas are a mind, right? They are like aggression, passion, doubt. Do we always have kleshas? Or only sometimes, right? In order to answer this, we need to know what kleshas are, right? But minds are temporary events. They are not permanent, they're constantly changing, right? And one mind triggers off the next mind and the next mind and so on. And one mind is influenced by other factors, for example, I walk through the place here and it's very discursive, and suddenly Gunkar goes, wah, 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 right? Wakes me up. So this is nothing I have control over. Does it influence my klesha? For a second, there's a stopping, right? You all know Gunkar, right? Everyone knows Gunkar. And so then we need to look at the klesha from its friends or enemies, right? And klesha is one aspect of a mind, right? And we therefore need to first look, kleshas are a little bit difficult to deal with, right? Why don't we simply look at how mind, what do we mean by mind? And what role do the klesha play within the mind? For example, does everyone know the terms 5 skandhas? No? Okay. Okay. The Buddha, the first teachings of the Buddha after he became enlightened was about the 5 skandhas. And he taught his Hindu friends who were adherent of an Atman, of a permanent soul, which is single, powerful, independent, permanent, right? It's sort of like the ego. When we say our ego, talk, Sibylle, no, Sylvia, sorry, what? Yeah, Siglinde. When I said Siglinde, they say, oh, that's me, right? And I always have been Siglinde, right? And I'm now so and so old, and yep, there's a certain duration there, and I'm definitely, no one messes with me if someone comes along, right? And so it's, the Atman has certain qualities like the ego. We think I'm always the same person since I was a child, even though it's obvious, right? When your mother was holding you in your arms, you didn't know anything about mathematics, you didn't know, not even chemistry. You know, you basically struggled with your diaper on and all those things. And now we are not doing this. So if you compare it, no one in their right mind would say it's the same person, right? Nevertheless, we think we are the same, right? So, because the Buddha tried to find Atman, basically, tried to realize it, but couldn't really find it. And then he came up with a teaching where he said, no, mind is not single, not permanent, and not all-powerful and independent. I'm actually dependent on lots of circumstances. And I have feelings, I have aggression, I have passion, those are all different things. There is nothing single there, right? I'm made up of many things. And what the Buddha did, he broke up mind into 5 parts. It's called the First Noble Truth. The First Noble Truth is that you have the 5 skandhas, but now I might ask you, if the First Noble Truth is the 5 skandhas, and also the First Noble Truth is the truth of suffering, Does that mean, because it's a noble truth, that we should be suffering? And if we're suffering, we're on the right path? No. Right? I hope not. So basically, it's a truth about our existence, and the truth is that we are made up of 5 components. We are not a single thing. This was the reason that whenever we see skandhas in general in the sadhanas, it's not the pure skandhas. It's the skandhas they call technically upadana skandhas, the grasp skandhas. The skandhas where people think they are themselves. For example, the first skandha is the body. The second skandha is the feelings. The first skandha is the ability to conceptualize. And the fourth skandha is made out of many, many, many factors. And the fifth skandha is the bare backbone consciousness. So, for example, there are people who say, my feelings, they are me. You hurt my feelings yesterday. Right? But the feelings, one of the most flimsy things. I mean, like, what are they? They're pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. We are not talking about the second skandha being, oh, my feelings, the whole storyline, and what he did. Oh, first he did this and then that. That is not feeling. Feeling in this context is just, why don't we quickly go through this? So the body is your eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, right? And can you feel them? For example, don't need to think about it, but do you experience your body right now? It has a certain warmth, maybe a certain ickiness today because it's humid and things. That's the body. Bodily feelings, but not bodily feelings, that's the body sensations. The second step from that is feelings. Every moment in your life you have a feeling. Do you feel right now good or bored with what I'm saying? Or say, no, I hope I have to go back to my children. I really need to get out of here. You do not have a choice over this, first of all. The 5 skandhas is something like your DNA. You are hardwired with it. As long as you are human, you have a body. You do not have a vote. There's no democracy there. You're going to have a body as long as you're human. Then, as long as you're a human and have a mind, whether you want it or not, you like it, dislike it, or you say it doesn't matter. What does like mean? Like means I want to have it. Like pleasant means I want to have the same experience again. Dislike means I do not want to have that feeling again. Neutral, doesn't matter, right? So feelings are crucial. In every moment, they tell you, they boss you around. And right now, for example, how you feel. Can you have a choice over your feeling? No, mostly, they're just there. And you do not get a break from them. So therefore, that's the second important part the Buddha pointed out. And later on we come back to it. The third one is something very innocently. What is this? Cup. And what is this? Now, what is it? Come on. Let me make you. I make a little sound. What is it? It's a mouse. So the simple thing, the ability to label, for example, say table, which applies, or sitting mat, it applies to this mat, and this mat. One label has the power to talk about a group of experience. And our mind is constantly ready to give names to things. It's a nice table. Oh, it has a spot on it, I need to wipe it off, We have all these ideas. And it starts out with a third skandha, which is ideation. It's the labeling process. And we do not even notice it much unless it doesn't work. I had a philosophy professor who used that example. He came, visited me in my monastery, and he was from Germany, and he knew plants in Germany. He came here and said, what is this flower? What's the name? I do not know it. What is it? And then I gave him a particular name for it. I do not remember what it was. And so the labeling process, I want to know what it is, what I know. It gets very prominent and visible if it doesn't work. If it works, as soon as I gave him, it's that, he moved on to something else. But so basically that factor is important for what? It's this, it's not that. It's the basis for any future arguments with your husbands, with your children, whatever. They all start, you didn't do this, it should be this way and not that, right? The very basis of it is the third skandha. But just the initial phase of it. Now, all other mental factors like faith, exertion, mindfulness, aggression, jealousy, and investigation, all those factors are grouped together in the fourth skandha. So the kleshas are not the feeling skandha. Feeling is just pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, right? So the fourth skandha, I call it the personality. Feeling pleasant, unpleasant, neutral doesn't make it personality. But the fourth skandha is sort of like, it's like a piano. It has so many keys on it, right? And everyone has the same keys. And the Vaibhashikas, they think there are 46 mental events. 2 of them in the second skandha and the third skandha, and all the rest of it is in the fourth skandha. So all the kleshas fall into the fourth skandha. But the keys are all the same. But when Mozart comes along and plays his Moonlight Sonata, right? It's something unique. Every one of us can play with his keys. And this is what I call our personality. The fourth skandha determines who you are. Are you a passionate person? Are you a doubting person? And all those things. So many, many factors come together to make that up. Why? If it would only be a few factors, it would be quickly boring. But there are so many options to do. Right? And the fifth skandha is just the backdrop. For example, if it would be so many individual factors all at once, what holds the whole thing together? So the fifth skandha is just the six consciousnesses, like eye, visual consciousness, auditory consciousness, and the mental consciousness, and so on, right? So basically, the five skandhas are neither good or bad. And now we're gonna do one thing, okay? I'm gonna skip here. Let me just see. I'm gonna give you a chart which lists all the factors. And then let me first tell you what I wanna do. We're gonna have 44 factors being listed. These 44 factors, whenever you have a good mind, you will see there will be 10 factors simultaneously being good. If one of them is good, all 10 are good. And if you bad, motivated, negative activity, aggression, there are again 10 negative factors which come along, but none of the good ones. When you have a good ones, none of the bad ones can occur in the same time. So in other words, an important teaching of the Abhidharma is, and now we move towards why is that important? We want to move towards working with what's called virtuous or positive mind and not with a negative mind. How do we do that? If I have a negative mind, if the principle is that a virtuous mind and a non-virtuous mind cannot coexist in the same moment, then I have lots of opportunity to work with a negative mind. All I need to do, find one factor which is virtuous and generate that mind, and all the other 9 come along with it. It's a real sweet special offer at the Buddhist store. So whenever we practice, and now I'm mixing a little bit what I wanted to say, right? But whenever we practice, sometimes it feels like your obstacles or your discursiveness is so powerful, right? And you say, I don't know what to do. It just comes and goes, right? When you know what the mind is, and you really have certainty about the fact that a loving thought and aggressive thought cannot occur at the same moment, you can simply generate a positive, loving thought. And then when you look at our sadhanas, why do they generate all these positive thoughts? You could say, if they generate these positive thoughts, all the kleshas will be eliminated for this same moment. They could re-arise in the next moment if that the causes and conditions are there for it. But you have the power to generate positive minds. And that's actually what we do in the sadhana practice. So let me quickly give me my main point. We look at the mind to see how does mind arise. We are interested to develop a positive mind. Why? Because kleshas are the cause for suffering. And there are different kinds of sufferings. We can get at another point. But when we meditate, our teacher gives us a sadhana where we generate positive thoughts and we see, oh, it's working. It actually has an impact on my mind. But we might not really understand why, right? And sometimes positive things occur haphazardly to you. They are just someone nice comes in and, so it switches your mind, right? And But practice is about you generating these minds. Of course, if a teacher walks into the room, then we always try to be at our best a little bit, right? But the point is, we're gonna use all the help we can get from the outside. But the practice is geared towards that we understand the workings of our minds. And when you look at it, what the Abhidharma is teaching, it's not such a big mystery as we might think, right? So therefore, my point, the first class has to be about these principles, where we look about the positive mind, how the positive mind arises, the negative mind, and what is a positive mind and what a negative mind. So basically, let me show you this chart. Sadhana is a practice, a visualization practice. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. There's a grouping. It's a standard Vaibhashika grouping. So the Buddha basically taught 3 basic teachings. One is called the skandhas. The second one is called ayatanas. The third one is called the dhatus. And we might get into this a little bit later. And the fourth one is the dependent origination, the 12 links of the dependent origination. The 12 links of the dependent origination was a later teaching in his life. He first taught the skandhas, dhatus, and ayatanas, and towards the end of his life, due to certain reasons, he introduced a new teaching, the 12 links of interdependent origination. Now, this system is slightly different. After the Buddha passed away, certain issues came up and they tried to. The Buddha himself was not too keen to talk about every little detail. But once he passed away, people could no longer say, oh, the Buddha said, look, he comes into the door. It was gone. Therefore, when then other people came along and challenged the Buddhist, they asked, what's the, for example, the cause of the origin of the world? The Buddha said, not an important question, please, next question. But when someone would come to me from a different religion, well, we know what the cause of the world is, and you know, no, not important, there are more important things. Then I say, you so say, maybe you just don't know. We know. Right? So therefore, the Buddhist philosophy got much more detailed because you could say it was also an issue of survival. You could not go around too long, oh, we do not know this, we do not know this. It would not have worked. So therefore, at some point, they spelled out, a few centuries later, they spelled out very clearly what all the aspects of the mind are. And I give you one reason for it. It's an attempt to break your mind into 75 parts. And the promise is how every mind in the world can be constructed through the 75 parts, through different arrangement of it, right? So, but it's the 75 parts, there's nothing outside. Why is that important? Because when you practice, for example, with Trungpa Rinpoche, we had this thing. First, we started doing Nuntra practice. First, Shamatha Vipassana, and then we did this for a while, then we started Vajrayana practice, Nundro, and then His Holiness' 16th Karmapa gave the Vajrayogini Abhisheka, right? And then you did Vajrayogini Abhishek, then you did Chakasamvara, and then supposed to follow some Nyingma teachings afterwards. So we always felt like we're never growing up. Each time we finish something, it's the next thing. And I had this lovely experience at my monastery. I finally took the Vajrayogini Abhisheka, right, and said, now I can come home, and they can no longer say, we cannot talk with you because you're not part of the Vajrayogini group. So I came home and then had a conversation, and then the person said, oh, sorry, I cannot talk with you because you're not a Chakasamvara practitioner yet. So, education process. An education process is like you go to high school, you go to university, and at some point you go out in the world and you're on your own. But you're entrusted to go on your own. For any education process, you cannot say things are endless. There has to be a feeling, yes, I got all the instructions, all the essence. That's, by the way, the first 3 retreat which you do is mainly about that you passed on to you all the important teachings and practices which the Kagyu lineage were giving to us. And then you usually do a second retreat where you specialize. But no one expects too much to work everything out in the first retreat. But everything is passed out. And then from then onwards, there's nothing new coming. But if you have this feeling there's always going to be something more you haven't, you always feel like an amateur, you're like a beginner, right? And so in any sadhana, in any practice, we have to come at some point where we say, I taught you all. This teaching, 75 factors, they say, we taught you all important factors in regards to the mind. So we have here, Rupa is called the first skandha. It's your sense organs and matter in general. Then Chitta is the fifth skandha. And then we have Chaitasika. Chaitasika, Chitta means mind. And Chaitasika, connected with the word, means a mental event or factor. And as I mentioned, there are 46 of them. Do you see them here? I make them a little bigger. Okay? So we have 46. And then there are 10, they are called, 10 Mahabhumikas. These are general factors which exist in every mind, whether the mind is good or bad or neutral. Doesn't really matter. You always will have these 10. So you might say, I should know those. So let's see what they are. And there's some surprise in there. For example, of course, Vedana is feeling, second skandha. You always, at every moment, will have a feeling. You should be aware of that. Then Cetana is intention. That's the number one karma factor you should pay attention to. Every moment, your mind has an intention. If the mind is good, then it's strong, and it will have the power to sow a seed in your consciousness which will ripen sometime later on. If the mind is negative intention, it's very strong, it has the power to dwell in your subconsciousness until the factors, causes and conditions come together for it to ripen. So this is considered to be the number one factor in terms of karma. It's the intention, how you do things. Number 3 is ideation. That was the labeling, the basic capacity for labeling. And then the other one, interesting, number 6 is prajna, understanding. Many other schools would say prajna is always a positive factor, but here, interesting enough, prajna can be also bad. It can be a wrong understanding, right? But every mind has this key factor. And as you will see, prajna and jnana, we can say, whatever is jnana is necessarily prajna, but whatever is prajna is not necessarily jnana. Does this make sense? They are of the same family. Prajna is the overarching category, and jnana, cognition, wisdom, is one aspect of this category. That's an important factor. So we will spend a little bit time on prajna. Most of our practice is either compassion, emphasis of compassion, or emphasis of prajna, or samadhi in addition, and maybe a little bit mindfulness. Okay, so basically, we have 10 factors every mind has, and we should familiarize ourselves with it, because those are the tools we bring to meditation. Those are the tools we bring to post-meditation. We should not be too innocent about them. Next one, Kushala Mahabhumika are the good, wholesome factors, and it says 10. Whenever you have faith, number one, you necessarily have equanimity, modesty, and la-di-la-di-la. You might have them weakly, but if you have strong faith, you will have all the other ones. That's an important point for practice. Because in practice, sometimes it feels like when you have a klesha, it feels like it's such a big mountain, I cannot deal with it. Right? You just need to generate one tiny little bit factor which cannot coexist with it. And you can take the one you like. You don't need to take one which is difficult for you. You just pick something, and that's what the practices actually are doing. The sadhanas, the practices which we are doing, they are geared towards generating positive factors and generating wisdom. So we already are set up, basically. But if you really know what you're doing in a sadhana, you can bring certainty into your practice. Okay. Next factor is kleshas. Here we have 6 kleshas, the big ones. Whenever you have a klesha mind, you will have those. And then there are minor kleshas, and we can forget about them. The main point, what I wanted to see, whenever you have a mind, you are made up of many, many, many different factors. And if you have interest to move your mind in a particular direction, you have a lot of possibilities to do this confidently if you know what you're doing. And in general, we have a sense of caring. It's sometimes, but we also sometimes, being angry can also be a habit, right? And in general, angry habit, we're not feeling so good about it. Passionate is a little bit interesting. It's sort of like we like it. So not every klesha is something negative. Passion, for example, or pride. Look at me, you know. I'm giving a talk for 1 hour. No one ran out so far. That's a good thing. Okay. So in any way, we have kleshas, and they are different ones. Some of them we like and cannot easily stop, and some of them we dislike and we really want them to stop, but we do not know how. Why? Because I get always angry when I see my husband didn't take out the garbage, for example. It just triggers me off or whatever. It goes so easily, so quickly. And tomorrow we will look tomorrow at the kleshas and to see why are they so strong. They are not strong by nature. As you will see, The Tibetan Lama Zangpo help me. It's trache. Is one synonym of trache, subtle increaser. It's anushaya in Sanskrit. Trache. I'll show you the Tibetan of it. It means subtle increaser. And that's a translation the Tibetans used for kleshas. And it means kleshas, they are sneaky little things. They come just minor, you hardly notice them, and then suddenly they increase and they blow up in your face. We want to know why. How can we influence that process? And so therefore tomorrow, second class, we will talk about kleshas and give you something away. Basically, we try to understand how they are working and what's their support system. And you will see there are two main, I'll quickly share to you that tomorrow we're not starting at ground zero. We start already knowing this. Basically, the main strategy to work with the kleshas is to look at the object of the klesha. I'll give you an example. For example, when you have a fight with your partner, assuming you love your partner usually, but then you have a fight. When you have this fight, you talk something like, you always do that, right? You do not say, honey, sometimes you really do this, but other times you're just fine. That's not how you fight, right? You have an argument by exaggerating the negative aspect of a person and just focusing on it. That's what a klesha is doing. It's ignoring all the other aspects. It just focuses on the negative. And so therefore, for example, one strategy in modern psychology is if you have an argument and you have a point, you say, honey, sometimes you do this, right? Use the word sometimes, don't use the word always, right? But kleshas work always. As soon as you change to sometimes, the fight is already over, you know. It's sort of, there are certain ways how you can influence the kleshas. You can influence through the object. The klesha is supported by the object. It has to be a suitable object. You're not gonna get angry about something which is completely positive. It's difficult to do. There has to be something negative there, right? So, and if you have a negative object, it will support you. It will trigger off the klesha in no time. It goes like this, really. The other thing is like a klesha needs a support system. And you say memory, for example. You say, you know, the arguments I often end up with is like they say, yeah, you did that 5 years ago, you know, and you did the same thing. And I say, 5 years ago? I did other things in between, which are actually good. Why are you focused on the 5 years ago? Why are you not focusing on something else, right? But in other words, you need to have a support system which tells you a similar story. A klesha alone is too weak. Therefore, the strategy tomorrow will be how to work with kleshas. We look at the object properly, right? And we try to move away from, you are always this way. We give the object, if there's a problem with the object, we're not going to deny that either. We're not saying, oh, everything is good if it's not good. But to say to a partner, which you usually like, you're always this way, it's just a wrong argument. But it feels, if I'm not saying that, then he will get away with it, or whatever it is. So tomorrow we will look at how kleshas work. Today we looked a little bit how mind works in general, and we use the principles we learned from today. For example, a klesha mind is a negative mind, cannot coexist with a positive mind. Then the third class is we look at our different practices. So basically we have learned how the mind functions, the positive mind and the negative mind and the neutral mind. Then we look at how the negative klesha mind functions. What's its nature, what is its effect he has on the environment and so on. What objects does he need, what's the support system. And then we learn something about how this state of mind works. And then we look at different practice, shamatha practice, visualization practice. Do you know Tonglen practice? Bodhicitta practice, where you take on the pain of others, and you replace it with positive components. You will then easily see why these practices were designed in that way, because they address how kleshas work, how they are supported, and how they are overcome. So we have this. So far, we basically talk about prajna and working with the kleshas. And the fourth class, we have to talk about the wisdoms. And we, give me 5 more minutes and I'm done, okay? There was one problem I had with the wisdom teachings. I looked through so many sadhanas. I created electronic forms where wisdom, mirror-like wisdom, where does it show up? Does it say anything about what mirror-like wisdom is? And I hardly could find any text who say what the 5 wisdoms are themselves. There are a lot of teachings what the 5 wisdoms overcome. They transform the kleshas into wisdom. They transform the 8 consciousnesses into the wisdoms. They transform the 5 skandhas. Everything is a transformation about the wisdom. What are the wisdoms themselves when they are not battling something, right? And so therefore, and at some point I found a text who actually just is doing that. It does not talk about what it overcomes. It only talks about the positive aspects of it. And that's the source is a Mahayana source. It's called Buddha Bhumi Sutra. And it's translated into Chinese. And there's a commentary translated into Tibetan. And a bigger commentary which adopts the Tibetan commentary into Chinese. So you Chinese folks, you have it easy. And that text is about the Buddha realm. It only it says that the 5 wisdoms manifest the Amitabha realm. The Amitabha realm is created by the 5 wisdoms, and only by the 5 wisdoms. There is no issue of negative klesha mind at all. Nothing needs to be overcome. And it's a little bit on the level, if you become a Buddha, then you can create your own Buddha realm. And because in the Buddha realm, there is no overcoming of kleshas or negativity and all that. This is all solved. They are, so to speak, enlightened. Therefore, the wisdoms can shine forth and manifest in a very clear, pure way without having to overcome something. And there's the whole sutra, and I extracted the sutra English translation from the commentary, English commentary. And this is marvelous. This really tells you what the 5 wisdoms are, what are their difference, why they are 5, why they are not 3 or 10 or whatever, and why do we have 5 Buddha families and all those things. And so basically what we will do in this one, we talk about what the 5 wisdoms are, what is their nature. We will also cover what do they overcome. But we will do one additional step. We will have clear teachings. And there's also one text. The commentary on the Buddha Bhumi Sutra uses a big section from the Vijnaptimatra city, which is, now I pronounce this really badly, Xuanzang, the main Chinese translator. How do you pronounce it? Xuanzang. There's one translator in China who translated everything. Xuanzang. So I happened to translate 3 volumes of it from the French into English, and I had a Chinese scholar from California, German in origin, and he helped me with the Chinese part. So we inserted all the Chinese terms into the translation. It's long, it's 2,000 pages, it's long. But the section about the 5 wisdoms is completely taken over from the Vijnaptimatra city. So basically, I want to use that text, and I will give it to you, I think. We make a copy of you, and it talks about each of the wisdoms just from the point of view mainly what the wisdoms are, but it also mentions what it overcomes. So that's what we do. We have one class on the 5 wisdoms, clarifying what is their nature, why are there 5? Are they occurring at the same moment? Are they occurring one by one? And they are called Dharmadhatu wisdom, mirror-like wisdom, wisdom of equality, discriminating awareness wisdom, all-accomplishing wisdom. As you will see, there's a logical chronology, a timely chronology. First comes the Dharmadhatu wisdom, out of then there's mirror-like wisdom, and we will clarify each of the terms. Why is it called mirror-like wisdom? Why is it called wisdom of equality? And why? Because we can go to the root text, which is the main source for all the 5 wisdom teachings, as it turns out. And it's a Mahayana text, so we actually can talk about it without getting into Vajrayana trouble, right? Okay, then the last class, again, then we look at our practices at shamatha, vipassana, and particular visualization practice, and ask the question, where and when are the 5 wisdoms applied? So we always have the same, first we have a little theory, then we look, we have a problem, how does the problem work? How is it overcome? And then the next step followed up, how in the practices we are presently doing, how are these principles included? So we do this with the kleshas, how to work with the kleshas. We point it out and say, how do I work with the kleshas in my practice? So I want you to go home and basically say, oh, I'm actually doing those practices. Oh, I didn't see that, right? And then we can develop certainty, and it also gets personal. Then you could say, well, that's how I experience. And then, by the way, you can talk with each other a little bit if you feel like. What do you make of this, and you can enrich each other. And so we will do this with the kleshas. Kleshas, how do they function? How do we overcome them? How do we work with them? What are the wisdoms? How do we work with them? How do we work with them if there is no neurosis about and the wisdom just once in a lifetime shows up and you sort of experience it? But most likely, mainly when we use the wisdom and overcome the kleshas. So this is my plan, right? And so I shared a little bit where I want to move it, and I know that this is way, way too much, and therefore you now understand why I say I'm still learning here, right? And it's not that I'm not a Carl Brunholz who tells me, I just give you the answers, So that's my purpose. We should stop here. Are there 1 or 2 urgent questions? Okay. What I did, I provided my email address, and I wanted to I have more material which I want, but I'm hesitant sharing material because some of it is a little technical, right? So I like to talk everyone and give you material which we're actually using and not give you too much materials. But we will pass out some of it tomorrow. And then if you want to have an electronic form for it, I have a website where I was teaching on the wisdom on the kleshas before, and you can sign up at it for free, and you can, if you feel inspired, you can just access those materials. There's one. You can also, when you want to have the materials which I want to share here in the class, send me an email, and I will simply send it to you. Okay? Then I guess traditionally we share the merit with, right? Even in my house we do that. Okay. By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may defeat the enemy wrongdoing from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. Sorry, you do it in Tibetan.
Page 217. Page 217.
Thank you.